Quite the slate on the NFL and Thanksgiving. Not the most compelling games, but very interesting stuff. I'm Brian Clark at CineSport, going over them all with Howard Balzer of the Sports Xchange. And Howard, we'll start with the nightcap. The Bears winning at Lambeau Field. They beat the Packers 17-13. Jay Cutler exercises those demons. He struggled with the Packers. But looking at Green Bay, are they back to those old issues we saw a couple of weeks ago?
They very well might be, and they were running the ball pretty well tonight. But, you have to believe the conditions certainly contributed to it. I know a lot of people would say, well, the Packers should be used to that. But anytime you have a wet ball and wet ground, it definitely affects your game, especially when so much is centered around the passing game. But, Aaron Rodgers just hasn't been that good lately, and you really wonder about him and that team coming down the stretch. And it's going to be interesting with them and the Vikings. Vikings have some tough games ahead of them, and now the Bears have injected themselves into at least the wild card race with so many teams in both conferences, but certainly the NFC, that are all bunched around that right around 500, 5-5, 4-6. Now the Bears 5-6, so they're still alive and definitely have a shot at least of getting into the postseason.
In the middle game, a team surged ahead. Panthers are now 11-0. And when you look at the storylines going into that game, okay, Cowboys have 3 wins, but they've got Tony Romo back. They're going to beat the Panthers. Carolina went out and hammered Dallas 33-14. What kind of statement did the Panthers make with this win?
They made a huge statement. And they've been making that statement now for maybe 6 or 7 weeks. And when they started out 4-0 and everyone was saying, well, they haven't really played anybody. But all they've done is beat everybody, and they've beat good teams. And now to go on the road and beat a Cowboys team that obviously was desperate, and the way they did it, I did wonder going in about Tony Romo and how he would do on a short week. And he was rusty last week. Him getting hurt, wow, that's obviously going to affect them. But, the Panthers have made a statement that we are as good as anybody, maybe better than anybody in this conference.
And just a disaster for the Eagles in that early game, hammered by the Lions 45-14 in Detroit, 5 touchdowns for Matthew Stafford. Did we see the beginning of the end for Chip Kelly in Philadelphia?
It might be, but I think what we're seeing here, of course, a part of it is that no matter what level you're on, you better have a quarterback. And right now, that's been the biggest issue with the Eagles all season, whether it's been Sam Bradford when he's healthy or Mark Sanchez. And when the offense isn't doing anything, especially with that tempo that they play, you're going to put your defense in a very difficult position. And now we've seen, 2 games in a row, 2 games in 5 days, where the other team has scored 45 points. I mean, they were embarrassed by the Buccaneers at home. Now they give up all those points to Detroit. And so this is a team in real trouble coming down the stretch of the last 5 weeks of the season now.
Yeah, next up for the Eagles, it's the Patriots. They've got a pretty good offense as well. That's the Thanksgiving NFL recap. Howard Balzer of the Sports Xchange. Thanks, Howard.